So in this video, we're going to be going over the 10% rule, and this is how energy flows through an ecosystem. Before we get into how it applies to an ecosystem, we're going to practice how to calculate 10%. This is a super useful skill just to calculate 10%. If you are going out to eat, in the US, you are always supposed to tip your waiter or waitress. This is how they earn their living. They don't really get a salary. They're paid hourly, normally like $2 an hour because they make their living on tips. So just make sure that you know if you're going out to eat and you're getting service, then you should be tipping. And I'm going to teach you how if you don't already. So 10%, we're going to practice what is 10% of $10. The way that you calculate 10%, the easiest way is you find the decimal and you move it one place to the left. 10% of $10 is $1. All right, normally the average amount that you're supposed to tip is about 18 to 20%. I always do 20%. And the way that you do that is you just take the 10% times 2. We know that 10% of $10 was $1. Woo, $1. And then I just multiplied that by 2 because it's 10% times 2 is 20%. So $1 times 2 equals $2. So then that means that on that bill, I would be leaving $12 total. Okay. All right. Last practice, 10% of $1. Let me take this one to the left. That means that this is like $0.1, but we just call that 10 cents. All right, let's get into how this applies to energy. All right, so we've made energy pyramids, we've made food webs, we've looked at food chains, and we know that the arrows in a food web are representing energy. We know that the levels in an energy pyramid are representing energy, but how much energy is being transferred. So at the bottom, the producers have the most energy. Anytime that you go up a level, only 10% is transferred, which means that 90% is lost to heat. Or lost as heat, I should say. Lost as heat. So if I'm moving from a producer to a primary consumer, so that's just one level, 10% of the energy is transferred. Okay? I can see here 10%. If I'm moving from a producer to a secondary consumer, that means that only 1% of the energy is transferred. And how do I get that? Because when I moved up one level, that was 10%. And then when I move up another level, I'm basically taking 10% of 10%, which is 1%. And then if I'm going from a producer to a tertiary consumer, so it's all the way up here, I'm getting only 0.1%. And that 0.1% is 10% of 1%. When I move from here to here. So every single level, only 10% is conserved. I mean, it's crazy that most of it is just lost. Okay, so here's just in conclusion, if I'm moving one level, that's 10%. If I move 2 levels, then that's 1% because 1% is 10% of 10%. And then if I move 3 levels, then it's 0.1%. Okay, so those are the rules that we're going to go, and that's going to help us when we're going through some problems on your next page. So the steps to solve these kinds of problems is we're going to read the problem, identify important parts, so like underline the keywords. We're going to, secondly, identify the percentage taken, so what energy level are you going from and to? And what percent, and then finally you're just going to do the math. I'm going to walk through one example myself, and then your practice is to complete this student example. All right, step 1 is we are reading the problem. If the producers Anytime that I see a trophic level named, I'm going to underline it. So if the producers in an ecosystem store 400,000 calories of energy, anytime I see a number, I'm going to underline that. Calories is just a measure of energy. About how much of that energy is available to the herbivores that eat the producers. If I'm eating a producer, that means, yikes, automatically I know that I'm a primary consumer. I'm just going to put a number 1 so that I'm not writing a million things. My second step was I'm identifying the percentage taken. I'm identifying like what trophic level I'm starting with and ending with. So I'm going from a producer, I knew that from what I underlined, and I'm going to a primary consumer. That is only one level, so that means that I'm only taking 10%. Okay? The way that I like to set these problems up for step 3 is do the math is I like to kind of just write each level. So I have a producer, primary, second, tertiary. If it goes up further than that, then I can always identify it. So it told me that producers store 400,000 calories. And I know that I'm trying to find my primary. I don't really have to worry about 2 and 3 for this problem, but I just want to, for myself, visualize that I'm only going up one level. So for 400,000 calories, I know that my decimal is all the way over here. In order to calculate 10%, I just move it over 1. So that means I have now 1, 2, 3, 4 zeros. So 10% of 400,000 is 40,000. The way that I check myself is just by the 0. If I've moved my decimal 1, then I've basically gotten rid of that last 0. So I went from having 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 zeros to having 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, just an easy way to check. So 40,000 calories would be my answer. What you should be doing now is the student example, and then you're going to move on to the practice here. That's what you should be done with by the end of the period.